Started.
I think 17 of them.
Cool. Justin, can you log back into Bevy and make sure George makes it over, please? All right. Now we got fun logistics worked out. Thanks for your patience. So for those who don't know me, I'm John Owen, one of the co-leaders of the Splunk Houston User Group, along with Justin here. So yeah, thanks for taking the time. Glad to have everybody in person and virtual. Couple of little things of housekeeping. I think we've taken care of all the in-person stuff today. For anything logistic-wise, for those virtually, definitely appreciate having you. This is definitely a mainstay of the Houston User Group is and catering to all the Houston community extended, because I know it's like, hour and a half sometimes for people to have to drive in. So much appreciated. Couple things to note. Our next user group meeting, and I had to pull this up, will be June 18th, back at the Fulcrum offices. We'll be going over Splunk attack range, detection simulation, and detection engineering. So it'll be a fun little thing if you have not ever played with attack range or want to see it, or even some variations of it. So one of our engineers, Devlin, will be giving that talk. The other thing is we're going to be opening up and kind of expanding our user group a little bit. We've taken on a sister user group with Denver, so we'll be collaborating broader with them and closer, being able to do some, co-hosted things. And so maybe we'll get to, have a better extended community with that partnership. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Brian.
Thank you. Well, thanks for joining. I'm Brian Obendorfer. I am principal network engineer here at Waste Management. I am a network guy. And I used Splunk to stop logging into devices and really irritated a lot of people in the past doing so. So I'm going to kind of take you through some of my fun things and a few other things. A little bit about me, military veteran, 26 plus years of networking experience, network service provider. So those are the guys that provide the ISPs, the networks for ISPs, government, banking, and environmental stability, sustainability. Been using Splunk since 2015. I've got a couple of my favorite content developments that I've created. Internet capacity planning, barbecue cook-off. I kind of stole some other Splunkers' ideas and ran with it. And then user network health checks.
Let's just do the whole presentation on the bar.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll get there. So my agenda, some of my favorite content development, stop crossing your eyes with some scripts that I ran in the past. Why do I have to log into this device? One may not want to hear it, but ITSI on the cheap. And what does 200 gigabits of ingestion get you? So one of my favorite ones was a bandwidth capacity report. So at a former place of employment, we had monitoring SNMP and ran every 1 minute or so to pull data from every single device. Well, that gateway, that cost to that gateway is $1 million just to talk to that company to do this. So there's other ways to do it. Figured out how I can use our current SNMP tool, monitor the network, set the WAN speed specifically to each port, run an SNMP trap. When those things went into my trap collector, Splunk forwarded them up to Splunk, and then I built a report. I now have a transactional report that gives me that trap from SNMP, the duration of the time something was down, even expanded it to show that cost of something being down or degraded over time against our EBITDA. So there's a cost associated to it. So it's impactful for the business to be able to proactively go after this. This reduced a lot of our escalations or network is slow because we're proactive about it. It's one of my favorite ones. Barbecue cook-off. Now this was several years ago. A little smoky in the pictures, but I used TAPIQ barbecue probes to get sensors on the meat, get sensors in the air, ran some API calls from Forecast, used T-Mobile hotspot, bridged it all together, dumped it into my Splunk that was feeding it back at my house and pulling it down. So networked it all out. And during that cook-off, I didn't do well, but I was in charge of the brisket. And for that brisket cook-off, I did not have to get up and down to check. We didn't have to lift the lid to see what the temperature of everything was going on inside. So it saved us time and effort on it. Now, the other favorite one is going to come a little bit later. So one of my biggest pains and where I started, this is a bit of an origin story. At another company, we had to tell the routing status across all of our regions in Asia. So that was really stretching Asia into an EMEA location. So Asia and Europe. In those locations, you ran the script, kicked it off every night at 7:00. It was a bash script or Python script. I forget which one, but either way, logged into each device, spit out the results into a text file. And then you had to go through each line and look at what routing was up or down. It really irritated me. It irritated me to no end. So, and plus the duration, you never wanted to be the person having to do this report because you're 2.5 hours of time involved. What a pain. So I crossed my eyes by using Splunk. This was going to Cisco Live in 2015, getting the cutout sheet of all the commands and just started going at it. So looking at the routing protocols, you can find the current status of the log message for in Cisco and mnemonic. You get OSPF, BGP. We had ERGRP, so we can see what the current status was based upon those mnemonics in that log message. You can tell how many times it went up and down, what the current status was, automate that email, and I saved 2.5 hours. So that is one of my first steps into monitoring a network with Splunk, and then took me through my career path, all because I was irritated. All right, so why do I have to log into whatever? So got to a point, everything we do on the network side is show log. If you're in a Cisco, if you're Arista, if you're any OEM that's out there, show log or firewall, you may go into the VAR logs or wherever you're going. You're checking the logs to see what happened. Everything's going to Splunk. So why are you logging in if you're doing it right? So I built that SPL language searches for everything that I started to have to go through when I troubleshot in the operational field. And when I started doing that, I was able to identify things much faster than everybody else. So at that time when I started with this, I was like a tier 2. We had a tier 3 and a tier 4. Tier 4 being the true engineers, tier 3 that in between. So I built operational checks for all OEMs, every last one of them, for all the stuff that we were responsible for. We ran dashboards of those searches for every event. So if we had a problem in one location, whether it was a city or a data center, that dashboard served me well. I'd pull it up, plug in the site, plug in an IP address, plug in whatever it was, and it would spit out what the current problem was at that site. So if you're looking at CPU, if you're looking into routing is down, interfaces have gone down, BPDUs, all those wonderful things that are things that you check for. It was in your fingertips within seconds. So by able to do that, I was getting to a point where I didn't log into a device. We had an outage. I knew within 10 seconds where the problem was. I had already called and escalated to that higher level tier. And the initial reaction was, why are you calling me? 45 minutes later, he's done noodling through the network, comes to the same resolution that I already gave him 45 minutes earlier. He delayed that resolution because I already knew the answer. And that was a huge selling point within our company for that tier to understand that we knew what we were talking about and we knew where the problems were and how we can get to those solutions much faster. All right, ITSI on the Jeep. All right, so kind of that little dashboard that I was just talking about. What are your pain points? What's bitten you on the backside and caused you to have to talk about some kind of RCA about a network OEM device having problems? You build that dashboard that's got those little pieces in there. You get it into a point where everybody in the operational staff is able to provide, have them put input into what's causing them tickets, issues with their tickets. And then post that outage events, make sure you're adding that panel into that dashboard. So while it's not going to be true ITSI where you got red and green and it links you to the exact issue on the network side, you should be able to do it. So what I did? This was repeated success. Former company, I did the same thing with the user dashboard and with network dashboards. I did that here as well. And this will lead to our next slide. So for users, we had at a former company, we used Uber Agent. Everything is reporting into Splunk. So you start tracing, where applications are failing, where Windows events logs are happening. Did they get locked out? How the PC is performing? All that data was there. At that point, we were really on the front end using T-stats inside our dashboards to pull the information down. We did the same thing for network. From Cisco, Arista, and firewalls, we had Checkpoint. We had Fortinet, load balancers, F5s, and we had some DOS devices in there too, all tying all that data in together. Part of that 45 minutes later was I had access to both at one point in time. And I was sitting on the user side where I was creating, or part of a team creating these user dashboards for identifying what those end users were doing. I was able to detect that the application was failing because the load balancer was having problems. You marry all that data together. Forget like that separation of church and state with users and network. If it's all together in that huge data lake, you could really build something that's true ITSI kind of replacement for everybody to use. Come on, more. All right, so what does 200 gigabits of ingestion get you? Now, I'm going to say I liberally stole from work I did with Splunk. So back in 2022 to 2023, our former account manager liked our story, liked what we were doing. And we got together with some of our team members and we built what we're actually saving with our 200 gigabit of ingestion. We were able to reduce time to knowledge of what's going on with everything. And I ended up presenting this to Cisco Splunk teams as far as how we're using it here at WM. The large slide, I'm not going to read most of it, but it was a huge financial benefit, right? We were able to see that value. By the time our NOC team logs in, and if they logged into the firewall and checked that way, they can see it. It's going to take a far longer time than using those same little dashboards I talked about earlier. So they're able to plug in an IP address, a device name, and all the data spits out right in front of them using base searches so that it's faster. And they're able to quickly identify what the root causes of problems are. So these are our numbers that we saved with our events. And this was all calculated. It was so, I was questioning why I had to keep getting on calls with Splunk to talk about these numbers. Because our numbers don't match with what they've seen before. And it's because we used it so much on the network operations side, we're able to detect these problems so quickly that the numbers were astronomical for Splunk. There's our $24 million. Realize. Reduced number of incidents. We were killing it with being able to take that little bit of ingestion. Sam knows I'm trying to do a lot more with it, and we're going to get that much better as we go through. But it's been a huge game changer for how we're doing inside the network here. And we look forward to that expanded growth. I think that's the end of my slides. I feel like I ran through. That's it.
To the point.
Great.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
So, obviously you mentioned you said 200 gigs, right, a day? Are you still kind of currently about that? I guess my question is, how do you balance the typical verbosity of network logs and data and telemetry with, cost, intelligence?
So a little bit about me that wasn't really covered in the slides. It was on the Splunk slides when we put together that dashboard. When I got out of the military, I went to work for GTE Internetworking. At the time, we supported 1/3 of all of the AOL network. So everybody was on AOL at that time. So our logs or our alerting system were a bunch of X terms, terminal windows up with tail minus F on these systems, right? So you get used to filtering out logs, what's good, what's bad. In our current 200 gig license limit, which I bump up against pretty quickly sometimes now, but what we're doing is I'm filtering out the logs on the firewall itself. I'm not sending everything. And that filtering comes from, all right, let's turn up one. What's good, what's bad, what do I need to send? And it's very specific to the log IDs, not necessarily saying that I want everything that's informational or everything that's notification level. So there's a lot of fluff that comes along with relogging system and excluding those.
What are your primary data sources that are powering the dashboards y'all use?
Here it's mostly Fortinet.
So firewall logs?
All firewall logs. We have a handful of other OEMs that are in there. So for our data centers, we have Cisco, we have Arista populating in there, and then we have some other data that's populating from Juniper Mist for access points.
Any traps or syslog?
The only traps that we're getting are from NetScout. So we're sending traps from NetScout. That's our bandwidth capacity planning. And we worked with NetScout to develop a bulk update capability so that we can update all the WAN port interfaces. And if anybody needs that script, I can send it to you because it's not proprietary or anything like that. And if you've got NetScout's Ingenious Pulse, it's a quick push through. I can walk you through it. Pretty good. From there, that trap goes into we call it our DevOps server, and that's running our forwarder, and that goes into Splunk.
Nice.
But
Are you using Nets? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Are you using NetScout for your perf data collection as well, or are you using something else, or are you not even messing with perf data in Splunk?
Perf data?
Like your ingestion, per interface, CPU utilization, etc.
Yeah, so the CPU utilization all comes out of the syslog from the firewalls for us. We're not sending anything like that from NetScout. We're really running thin on it. Right.
So no SNMP active polling at all?
That we have other tools for that. Splunk is not an SNMP active polling solution in my book.
Correct.
So
No, I agree. I just wasn't sure if you were ingesting it.
We're not ingesting it, but the minute that we're able to expand our instance, I'm going to unload some traps into Splunk for sure.
Splunk Stream.
Splunk Stream?
Yeah.
No, I do use Splunk Mobile.
Okay.
And I've used that so that good, for example, that we had, we created an alert for when somebody creates an admin login
Okay.
locally. And we caught somebody doing something that they shouldn't have. And that came across all of our phones.
Oh. Right.
Oh, wow.
That's funny.
Yeah, so we rallied the troops, told cyber, and
You do the same for like
It's a-
can delete, I'm assuming, stuff like that. Get can delete functionality, things like that as well, or is that a different group maybe?
it's going to be a different group. I have drawn a hard line of cyber stuff and said that's not me.
Good for you.
I like network because network I get to do things every day, day in, day out. The cyber stuff you can get bogged down in paperwork.
Any
What
favorite
about
apps?
NetFlow?
Interesting story. We had NetFlow going into Splunk. We were testing with our previous SEs, and actually had NetFlow going in, but that would have been a lot of data. So we killed that. It worked for us, but we got out of that mess because of the amount of data that it was going to ingest. We were going to do it here in our corporate headquarters, but we decided to stop that. And then Fortinet decided to cause CPU to go through the roof with NetFlow. So if you're using NetFlow, you can almost double your CPU using FortiGates.
Gotcha. If I don't know what tools you ended up using if you're collecting locally or with Splunk or something else in between. We had some pretty good success with NetFlow Optimizer in one environment. Worked out okay, just to kind of summarize the data. I mean, you still have to pay for a license at that point, but seemed to kind of itch the need for seeing the data. And we're currently working on a solution now for our current MSP to ingest the data within SolarWinds NTA, and then we're pulling the data out within Splunk to review it. But it's all summarized data, so it's not, it's not going to eat your license at that point. But obviously, your volume, it all depends.
Yeah, we are trying to push to get a packet capture solution at high priority locations in our data center. That solution will solve for what we're trying to do and give us a presentation. We're leading NetScout NG1 for that. We do have one license already or a purchase for it, but I have experience on cPacket, Endace, and Corbel for packet capture and readability and visibility. The NetScout Ingenious one probably fits the bill the most in our case.
We'll solve that for sure.
Mhm.
I'm interested to see if you looked at Stream for maybe even augmenting that too, triggering PCAPs from that.
Yeah, we did a POC with Stream as well. It was very helpful from a NetFlow standpoint. Especially as you noted, you can go ahead and have those hooks from ES or manually, you can do it to trigger your PCAPs. We did run into some problems, just as a note, if you decide to try it. In the summarization, it didn't seem to match one-to-one for the summarization of, let's say you're looking to summarize on a 5-minute basis of ingest. The way the buckets were working, it seems to be, I'm not 100% sure what the algorithm was, but it certainly didn't match with what we expected it to come out as.
Interesting.
But it's really cool. If you're a network guy, like I would definitely, might be worth taking a look at because it fits really well with Splunk.
Cool. We'll entertain it for sure.
Any favorite apps or TAs or?
Apps. So the Fortinet app is heavy in our system, but it doesn't work the way I like it. So I took their app and then built it my way so that it's functional. So inside their app, they got everything from, we use everything Fortinet. So we're looking at access points. We're looking at VPN connections, you name it. But their stuff, that application was not as good as I liked it. So we changed it. Thinking about building a couple apps, and I can't highlight it, but we're doing something pretty cool, rating every site. So if I'm not allowed to give away the secret sauce, but if you can think of ways to look at your end user performance and how it's relating to you on the network, and then rating a device level. So if you can rate your Wi-Fi, if you can rate your switching, your networking, and then give it a grade, and then bubble it all up, give yourself another grade overall for our site. Something that we have in play that we're using right now that is being used for all of our executives and developed. Talked about it, didn't demo it. Feel I'm safe to share that much. But it's really here. It's mostly me running everything Splunk. We're the only instance. The network team has got it, and I was able to getting it Splunk after an outage event several years ago. I was running a 50 gig dev license, and we were pointing TACAX logs in our data center at it at the time. It was a data center outage because somebody decided to plug in a Dell switch. We have Cisco at the time, and that Dell switch started a spanning tree event between data centers and knocked us out. So while I didn't have enough compute space on my dev license at the time, I quickly rebooted it so that it was up and running and functional. And then once it was functional and the outage restored, I was able to identify who fixed it. And when nobody was fessing up to any fix actions on the call, I said, I know exactly what happened. This guy fixed it. And that was the impetus for us to be able to say, go purchase it and go purchase it now. So that's most of the stuff I'm doing is mostly SPL, straight on network. We're looking, expanding it here in the company for everybody else. This moment in time. Sam's in the back, crossing his fingers, waiting for it to happen.
And are you collecting all those the syslog directly within Splunk, or do you have a collector that you're using and then parsing and reading?
Right now, because I've got a nice filter section on my firewalls, I'm sending everything to a heavy forwarder. So I'm filtering at the firewall itself. Heavy forwarder then sends it on into Splunk Cloud. We have looked at, and we've been approached by Cribble a couple of times. And then when you start doing the math, they want me to pay for more AWS instances. They want me to pay for their services, and they will then send it to Splunk, which means I'm paying for Splunk on top of that. So the cost associated does not add up between the two. Now, if we're starting to throw 7 terabytes or 10 terabytes or something like that at Splunk, maybe, but
Now we got something for that, buddy.
yeah. So
That cost you anything.
Do you so right now it's just the HF listening on a UDP or TCP port, no syslog collector locally?
no, yeah, correct. That's it.
Got it. Okay.
7 terabytes. Yeah, and the reason for that is, like I said, it's kind of just me. So I did this. We put in our instance in a way that other teams usually would have had large teams supporting it, but it was just our team finding the need and developing it. And my past experience, I got past the point of saying, well, if we only had Splunk, I just finally put up that dev license in the AWS instance and proved that it was far exceeded everybody else.
That's cool. Yeah, the only thing I will note is that, depending on your volume, obviously that works great, right? With it sounds like you're having a lot of success with it. Just keep an eye on your pipelines for your heavy forwarder. And I don't know if you're forwarding that data up to your Splunk Cloud instance, assuming you are as well. But to keep an eye on the pipelines, because what we found for large ingest volumes for UDP, and as MSP, we do that a lot for a lot of our customers as well. But sometimes, depending on their traffic and how you parse it, things can back up. So you may either need to find the need to write it locally and then read it with multiple pipelines. So just as a note regarding that.
Yeah, I appreciate it because our conversation with Sam before this meeting started was I'm not going to own this. It's a full-time job, or I'm going to get a full-time job just doing this and then do it the right way with the right help.
That's funny.
Because I know from my previous place of employment, we had 3 or 4 people that managed it, and then they had a whole group of people with architectural functionality doing the right Splunk development underneath. And that was a huge uplift. And that was at a major bank. So that was an undertaking, to say the least, for them. And I don't want that headache unless it's my full-time job.
Yeah, I was just curious. You have any, I've had many problems with like data normalization coming in from your logging, getting it sent. Are you using like data models, like accelerated data models for like dashboards and searches that you're using, or just using indexes?
Just using indexes right now. And it's pretty clean. When for me on the network side, it is, like I said, we're all Fortinet for everything. So I don't have much where I've got to clean things up. It's all this exact same until they decide to change the log ID number on you, and they'll do that.
That's what I figured, but I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, no, but that's like that full-time gig. As soon as something kicks off, that's what needs to happen.
And you mentioned, to kind of piggyback on that, I think you mentioned this on your dashboards, or maybe it was relating to a different project, but it sounded like you were talking about you leveraging T-stats under the hood to kind of power a lot of your queries. Are you using just T-stats on the raw data because the data is T-statsable using prefix and term and such, or are you using it in some other capacity?
Yeah, so we were using T-stats on the raw logs at the bank for everything coming in through Uber Agent, because that was, just think of a very large bank and all the end users and PCs and all that data coming in. It was better to parse everything up that way, and it was much faster for our help desk team. At that time, I did about a year doing just nothing but Splunk development. On that team, we were very DevOps orientated. We did some cool things with T-stats, identifying what was going on for the end user and taking that information in a very particular case, taking the information, generating an alert. That alert, the output, I essentially created a JSON output in the field. And then we had a RESTful service sitting on the back end listening for that event. Then they alerted the user. Here's the problem. And do you want to fix it? We had another guy on the team, it was a DevOps team, wrote the Java code to then go interact with the PC and fix based upon that knowledge base articles. So it was reducing end user issues at that point too. Anything else? I'm an open book.
What's next?
What next? Expand my license count.
It sounds like you got $24 million. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not the way they see it.
That's actually a great use case for the Splunk Chargeback app. I don't know if you looked at that one, but that's pretty much what it's geared towards. So that's cool.
Yeah. So what's next? They expand my license on my direct horizon right now. We're having an issue with a third party that sends email through our systems. I'm going to turn up traffic on the firewalls to see that, and then I'll be able to alert two ways whether or not the emails have gone through or whether or not that site is in an alarm. So see it two ways, and then can plot it on a location where the business is going to be able to say, oh, we've got a bad situation going on at this location. So that's really the next immediate.
Interesting. Have you thought about any, and I recognize you kind of drew that line in the sand between security and where you are, but do you believe that there are any use cases for yourself for automatic responses for potential events, or is that not necessarily in your wheelhouse?
There are potential. We have a SOAR product, not Splunk Source, but we have a SOAR product, and its time and opportunity is our biggest problem right now. We don't have time, so therefore the opportunity does not exist. We have built our own one-off automations based up from some of this information, but is not to the level that we want. We want to be able to take some of these events that are coming in, trigger that alert into SOAR, and then fix it. And it's not like the cyber side where cyber is looking for some kind of somebody did something they're not supposed to. There's an exe file that was downloaded that they weren't supposed to or attempted to, and then they take an action to do whatever. We're more along the lines of, really, our first steps are going to be BPDU, right? Interface keeps going BPDU, auto enables, goes back BPDU. For those that don't know what BPDU, it's essentially it's a network device that is trying to be a switch on your network, and that causes a big storm if it's allowed to, and it'll take down an entire site. So we're trying, that occurs all the time, but we shut it down. It automatically shuts down in the system right now in our current devices, but it keeps coming back up every 5 minutes and then goes back down. So we're just going to take that alerting, drop it into the SOAR, figure it all out, and shut down the interface, open the ticket, label the port. Somebody else go fix it later. But at least that's a good elimination that is on our agenda for that automation. We have another one that is going to be automated. All this is going to be within the next month or two. We use SCEP certs for authentication for some things. And that SCEP cert right now, if it's not able to talk to the server, we will have to go in and make some adjustments on the firewall. Now, we can completely automate that and get that out of the operational team's hands. So we'll be able to alert on it, which we're already alerting, sending them an email, and they prevent network outages because they're fixing it. But let's take them out of the mix based upon these two different events. Automate that through our SOAR tool based upon the log ID. So all of that is coming. It's just that our team is growing. We've actually doubled the acquisition on the network side. So we're going to be able to get that time so we can make that opportunity happen. Very impressive. Thank you.
That's
And now for
impressive.
the important question
Yeah.
is where did you get the sensors for the barbecue smoker, and what place did you come with the cook-off?
I wasn't last in the cook-off.
Yeah.
And what was the question on the temperature sensors?
Yeah, where'd you get the sensors?
TAPIQ. So if you just Google TAPIQ, they at one time somebody wrote a third-party API call for all of them.
That was my next question. Like, how'd you get the logs out of it though? That's typically the difficulty when you buy IoT stuff is you can't get the logs.
Yeah. So at one point in time, when I did this, somebody at Splunk did an article about how they did it. So I was like, all right, I can do that. I'm smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
So I went and bought the TAPIQ little meat thermometer and sensor. You set it up on Wi-Fi. You email this guy, hey, I want to get API access. It worked. And I started using the two to measure everything. So I haven't gone back and looked if that's still available. I've stopped doing barbecue for the most part because I got other things to do. But it was a fun event.
Awesome.
Thank you for the opportunity to be like.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
I thought I was going to go much longer than that.
Well, for those virtually, we're going to start cutting off now. Thank you so much for attending. Again, our next one is June 18th next month. So make sure you RSVP, and looking forward to seeing everybody again. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Nice meeting you.